All right, what's up, YouTube? Mid-range game is back. Brent and Dean this time. I'm not pulling the solo,
What's up?
and and we have a couple of things we're going to be talking about today. Mainly winners and losers of the NBA 2020 sort of crazy offseason.
Yeah, I mean, there
And
was moves left and right, huh?
uh, it happened in such quick succession, that you barely could catch your breath. That now the season's over, then we have the you can start trading and free agency and the draft, all just like bow bow bow, and teams are just going all over the place. So we're going to discuss just a couple of our winners and losers. We're not going to talk about the entire NBA, just a few that stand out to us. All right, Dean, what you got for your first winner? And no specific order. Doesn't have to
No
be your
specific.
biggest or loser. Yeah.
I thought the Celtics could have been in both categories, but for my first winner, I really liked them picking up Tristan Thompson from the
Okay.
Cavs. He kind of got lost in the shuffle there, but I think that's because they had Drummond and Love and him, and that's just too many bigs, down low. So, and the Cavs sucked, let's be honest, right? But they've been looking for a big like Thompson for as long as I can remember, right? He's really good on the offensive glass. He rolls to the rim. He's a strong dude. He can pick up fours. He's not somebody that's gonna, pick up guards, but if he has to, he can move well enough to stay with people. And at the mid-level exception, which is like 9 point something, this is a great pickup. And they got him because they didn't end up moving Hayward to the Pacers, and everybody thought they'd get Turner back. But Turner's at $18 million a year. Tristan comes in at $9 million, so it just works better on the books. And honestly, I like them just as much as players. Neither of them have super long range, although, Thompson tried to start shooting threes last year. So for the Celtics, I think this is the big that they've been missing. So we'll see if it's bringing in too late. They've been wanting this guy or a guy like him for years. Is it too late now? We'll see.
Right.
But that's my first winner. I really like Thompson to the Celtics.
All right, so then I'll just go to my first loser, which is the Boston Celtics.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. So here's the reason why for the same reasons, I really like picking up Tristan Thompson. They actually get a high caliber player. He played for Cleveland last year. It's hard to see what he's really gonna do on a team like the Celtics, but it does help them keep Tatum from having to go to 4 and stuff like that, and let him be a little more natural at 3, and let them play a lot of their players at one time. But the main reason I consider them losers is because they lost Gordon Hayward for next to nothing to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I believe one of the reasons why is I think Hayward kind of surprised them by opting out of his player option, because I think they underestimated his market value.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't trying to re-sign him last year, because you just assume, hey, you got a player option, we'll talk to you next year. And Hayward said, hey, let me see what I'm worth on the market, and hit everybody with that. And he was, it was substantial, 30 something million.
He had to know that deal was out there, right? You don't opt out of 30
to.
million without knowing that you're getting a huge deal.
Yeah, so he opts out of that. And so from the solo video, I broke down some of that. But so it sounds like the Pacers and the Celtics try to offer him a similar contract, but at about 110 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charlotte, who's notorious for overpaying people, came in with 120 million. Ain't nobody paying Gordon Hayward that. So they tried to pull off this sign and trade where they get at least a trade exemption, but that is nothing compared to losing a guy that's giving you double figure scoring when he's playing good playmaker. Now, of course, they have Tatum and things like that, but you can't pretend like they aren't losing something, a major piece. And we just found out today that Kemba Walker is dealing with that knee, and he had to get some stem cell shots and things, and he won't be able to play till January. So you can't pretend like that's not a major loss,
Yeah.
in my opinion, even though you're adding Tristan Thompson, so
Yeah.
that's why they're in my loser spot.
I think Hayward, it could be addition by subtraction. Too many cooks in the kitchen. You have
Right.
Tatum, Brown, Kemba, and Hayward, all guys that work well with the Rock, and Tatum's obviously the main guy now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hayward leaving, obviously it didn't work out there for him, right? He came in, got injured day one, and he's just been struggling with injuries. But let's be honest, when they were in the playoffs, the big thing was like, can they get Hayward back in time to make a difference, right?
Right.
So it's not like they're like, oh, he's a scrub. They needed him.
Right.
The Celtics are really weird. Like I really like the Thompson move, but let's not pretend that they just lost Hayward for pretty much nothing. Kyrie walked. Horford walked. Like, those are all big name people walking out the door, and they're not getting anything back. So all this like Danny Ainge is a great GM thing might be kind of questionable to me right now. I'm not liking everything he's doing.
And that's one of the reasons why I still have in my losers list is because they have lost these major free agents, and I know they're banking on they draft well, so they're banking on these young guys that they have, but Hayward leaving for nothing is a hit to them.
Yeah, it's kind of a cardinal sin, right? Letting a big time free agent walk for nothing.
Yeah, and I know they wanted to pull the sign and trade, but it was after he already signed an offer sheet. Like he was going there regardless, and so Charlotte didn't have to give up hardly anything. They didn't have to do a sign and trade at all, honestly.
Right.
But they did, and they got a little bit here and there, so it wasn't absolutely nothing.
Right.
But it was nothing. And Charlotte got 2 second-round draft picks as well.
Right.
Out of
because they draft so well, right?
Exactly.
They draft so well. All right, so let's move on. I'm gonna go to my second. I'm just gonna get the easy one out of the way. I like pretty much everything the Lakers did this offseason. Danny Green was obviously hobbled in the playoffs. They traded him away. He ends up, bouncing to Philly, but so they lose him, bring in Wes Matthews and Schroeder. So I mean those are 2 players I really like, and if you just look at replacing Green's number, he was at like 15 million. You get Wes Matthews, which is Danny Green light, for the minimum. So then they bring in Trez. Trez is kind of the one question mark for me. At the mid-level, I think it's a great move for the Lakers. Huge energy. I think he's going to play pissed. I think he heard everybody talking him down in the playoffs. He had lost his grandmother, and a lot of guys didn't play well in the bubble that were having really good seasons, so I'll give him a pass. They bring in Gasol. Really, the Lakers as a whole, I think, not shocking, not a hot take. I think they got better overall.
Right.
They did lose some things, but man, I think their offense is going to be better. Their defense is probably going to be slightly worse. But they still have LeBron, they still have AD, and now you added 2 of the best bench players in the league. In fact, the 2 best bench players in the league. And, you could probably nitpick something on the Lakers right now, but I don't see it, man. I think they are going to be a problem.
Yeah. I also have the Lakers on my winners list, and simply for the same things you were just talking about. They lost Rondo to free agency, Howard to Philly, Avery Bradley, traded JaVale McGee to the Cavs for 2 players with non-guaranteed contracts. So they essentially just dropped JaVale McGee, but didn't have it hit their cap. So that was great, right? So they traded him off and then got 2 players they could drop.
They did keep one of them. They did keep one. Yep.
Okay. And then traded off Danny Green, who ended up going to Philly, traded him to OKC. But I think signing Marc Gasol, you got to remember, though Marc Gasol kind of disappeared in Toronto, I mean, he's a former Defensive Player of the Year as a big guy. He passes well. He has a decent shot. He's not Jokic, but he's like, I used to be kind of like Jokic, right?
Yeah, he's going to be serviceable, especially if you play him like 20 minutes a game.
Right.
And it lets AD not have to bang against Jokic and stuff during the regular season. It's a great pickup. He's really smart player. His defensive metrics for last year even were really good. He shot the ball really well during the regular season, and then the bubble he kind of fell off. But yeah, so you know that's we took the easy. Oh yeah, over
an upgrade from Howard and McGee.
McGee's fun to watch, but.
And those guys can block shots and swat it into the stands every now and then. But Gasol's defensive IQ will help with the team aspect of defense, where they need that against guys like Jokic, who is not just going to score on you. He's going to find different ways to pick people apart, which would happen to montrezl Harrell. But I think in that scheme, playing with Gasol will also help him there, because he's never been known as a horrible defensive player until they met Denver in the playoffs. Right. Like you said, it was the bubble. He had to leave the bubble because his grandmother just passed and then come back. So,
and he was on the Clippers, and the Clippers are the Clippers. So we'll
they were kind of jacked up anyway.
All right, who you got for since we both did the Lakers, let's do our last good move. Who's your last good move?
My last winner is the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
Yeah,
go for it.
All right. All right, because you got to remember, they got Trae Young, Collins. They already had a nice little team there, and they're in the East where playoff is top heavy, but those last 3 spots aren't that hot, right? And I believe what they've done, they added Rondo, who brings in that veteran leadership. I don't know if you're getting Rondo anymore for his contribution, because you don't know which Rondo is going to show up each night when he contributes. But everybody who's played with him post Boston, like when he was in the Pelicans with AD, they said his knowledge, just passing it down to them, was just invaluable. I believe Rondo with Trae Young is what Trae Young needs, is a good mentor that's been at the top and the way he sees the game. They've added Chris Dunn, who no one cares about Chris Dunn when it comes to offense, but he is known for his defense. So again, they got Trae Young, but he has a hole on the defensive side. So you add another point guard with him. We get Gallinari, who can put the ball in the hoop, injury prone. Ball in the hoop though. And then the biggest is that Bogdanović.
I do like that move.
They got him. I'll talk about him a little bit later, but
okay,
in the loser section. But I believe with Trae Young and Collins and the people that they've added, they have actually gotten better, and there's a decent chance that they could actually break the playoff cusp and be moving their way up the ladder in the East. Are they a championship team? No.
Right. Okay.
They're a lot better.
Where do you have them in the East? Are they a 7-8 seed?
Oh, at least I think.
Okay.
I think they're
what's their
better
ceiling?
than Orlando.
What's their ceiling?
I would say their ceiling would be 6.
Okay. So I
5 or 6.
I didn't like all their moves. I did like the Bogdan move. I really liked that move.
So are they on your losers list, or you just didn't have them on?
Gallinari's on my loser list. He's a winner because he's getting $60 million, right? So he's not a loser. But I didn't like that move because he, when you say in the offseason, I want to go compete for a championship, and then you sign with Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think he thought his market was the mid-level exception for like the Lakers or the Clippers or a team like that.
Yeah.
And then Atlanta comes in. They're like, no, here's $60 million. And he's like, oh, all right. Well, by winning, I just mean being a 6 seed or 7 seed or maybe 8 seed. Like, I'm cool with that. Now, the positive for Atlanta is that the last year that deal is only guaranteed at $5 million. So for them, it's not that bad. But I didn't like the move because I'm not sold on Trae Young. He is a net 0 on the defense. He's like one of the worst players in the league on defense. Right. Are we sure he's not? I mean, it'll be interesting. I hope he's not the, good stats on a bad team guy. Is he going to be just as good now that he's surrounded by a lot of talent? Because Bogdan, I really like his game. He's going to come in with forget Buddy Hield. I'm the one that was hitting game winners when we actually did win games. Right. You sign Rondo. You said it first. is it good Rondo or bad Rondo? Because Rondo competing for a championship is good Rondo. Rondo playing for, let's not forget, the Mavericks, who fell apart after their championship, was a nightmare. So much so that they basically were like, can you just go away? He was okay in Chicago, but remember, there was a lot of drama there too, where there was like the Rondo and Butler camp versus everybody else. So it's not a guarantee that he's going to show up. And if they, he sees the writing on the wall that, he's not going to turn into annoying Rondo. And he was great for the Lakers, but they were pushing. They knew that they were going to be one of the last 4 teams, right?
Right.
And they had LeBron. And you're not going to come in there and not that Rondo acts a fool. I think he's a Hall of Famer at this point, especially after getting the last championship. But let's be honest, he's a very headstrong, and if he doesn't like the coach, he's going to let him know it. So I'm not sure. I think Atlanta shot all their bullets in this offseason. And now, what about their young guys, the Cam Reddish and, Collins? What are they going to do with him? So I'm not sold on Atlanta just yet. Do I think it puts them in the playoffs? Sure. But I don't know. I'm not as happy with that move as you are. I'm still not sold on Trae Young. And let's not forget they took Trae Young instead of Luka Doncic. But
and Trae tried to make that known with some of his performances. Offensively,
but they were
Trae
trash.
Young
he's great.
He's gifted.
But
you hope that it's a similar knock that was on Steph Curry early on, is that he was gifted offensively, but he was a hole in their defense, and they had to hide him a lot. But when Mark Jackson came and made that team play a better version of team defense, it helped out Curry because he didn't have to try to shut down individual players. Yeah. So that's what they have to do with Trae Young, is he's never going to be Defensive Player of the Year, let's be real. But if they can get the team, adding guys like Rondo and Dunn and things like that. They got Clint Capella. You're going to see him for a full season. Well, the full season that we got coming up. And so you're hoping that Collins, Capella, Trae Young, adding Bogdanovich and these other pieces, you hope that helps hide Trae, and they're able to, because they didn't bring in big scorers. They brought in guys that were facilitators and defensive players.
Well,
so
Bogdan's going to win a score. Gallinari is a scorer. He's not a defender.
That's true. They did bring in those
guys,
yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know if I'm Bogdan and we're running up the floor and Trae starts pulling from the logo every third shot that I'm going to be super thrilled about that. But we'll see. So
he did play with Buddy Hield. At least Trae hits his shots. So
well, that's true.
Most of them.
All right, so my last good one before we move on. We've kind of bounced back and forth, but I'll do my last good one. And I think we've talked about him in a previous video, and I've gone back and forth, honestly, on this, but I do think Chris Paul making the Suns relevant is one of the best moves of the offseason.
Right. I've
come around to the point where I think they had to do it to make sure that they keep Booker happy and just to make the Suns a team that you actually want to watch, because I haven't wanted to watch them a whole lot. I saw them in the bubble. They were fun. And now you add CP3 to that mix. So I think they might be outside of the Lakers, who I think probably had the best all-round offseason. I think bringing CP3 into that team, making the Suns relevant again, I think they're going to get – Ayton's going to have a monster year. So I think that's one of my favorite moves of the offseason.
Right. Same here. I think Ayton on that lineup, I know a lot of people may think, hey, CP3 is going to help unlock and get Booker where he needs to be. Booker's on pretty much unlocked. I mean, that guy is one of the best players in his position right now. Of course, he has room to improve, but I think that dude is already on his way. I believe the person on the team who's going to benefit the most of CP3 being there is DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah.
CP3 is known for playing with big guys, with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan and getting the best out of guys like that. And I think that the best is yet to come for Ayton. As long as he can stay healthy, if he can play with CP3 all year, I think he's going to be a name that we're going to start hearing. Because right now, when you hear Phoenix, you almost forget he's there. So you hear.
Well, he
you
played
just hear
really
Booker,
well
Booker,
for them,
Booker.
but he was out. Remember, he was also. It seems so long ago, but he missed like the first 20 games because of steroids.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is that a lot of people, when you talk about big guys that are throwback, you only hear Joel Embiid. And that is essentially the only name you ever hear. But Ayton has a great skill set. Like, he is a very good big guy. It's just that he's not getting the shine. Like you said, he's missed some games. His first season, he was injured a lot. And then he had the, take a seat because of your performance enhancing, whatever you want to do. And then, but I think that we'll actually hear more about DeAndre Ayton this year.
Yep, I agree.
Andre Ayton, yeah.
All right.
So I agree with that.
What's your next? Are you into the bad moves now? We've kind of bounced back and forth. Who you got?
We've gone back and forth. Let me hit you with a loser since we talked about Bogdanovich a little bit. And I'll hit you with the Milwaukee Bucks.
We agree on one. Okay, go ahead.
The Milwaukee Bucks, if they could have gotten Bogdanovich, I would have put them in the winners category because adding Jrue Holiday is an upgrade from Bledsoe, right? Mm-hmm. But not getting Bogdanovich doesn't help them cross the line that they're trying to cross. You got to remember, Milwaukee has had the best regular season record, 2 years in a row? Mm-hmm. And they still can't succeed in the playoffs. They have the double MVP back-to-back on both of those seasons where they had a great regular season. And they did that without Jrue Holiday. So they're not falling backwards getting Jrue Holiday. Of course, he's an improvement in the front court, but I don't believe he's an improvement in the point guard position, but he's not going to get them past some of the teams in the East that they can't get by. Bogdanovich was needed, and the problem with not being able to get that because of tampering and Bogdanovich saying he didn't approve or whatever, now they're being investigated by the league for tampering, and Giannis still hasn't signed an extension to his contract.
Right.
So that is the hard part. And they signed Jrue Holiday, who only has 1 year left on his contract. So there's a chance that at the end of this, at the start of next season, if Giannis says, hey, I want to go play, let's say with the Lakers or whatever the rumors are.
Right.
Giannis could leave and Jrue Holiday can leave. And we know free agents aren't going to be jumping to go to Milwaukee, especially with Giannis gone. So that is the main reason they did not secure their future or give Giannis, I think, any reason that they have really gone out and done what they had to do to improve to make him happy. Yeah, and that's the hard part.
You said they were the best regular season team for the last 2 years. Their coach has done this before, right? Great regular season team in Atlanta where they had 4 all-stars, the number 1 seed, and then they flame out in the playoffs. So, I wonder if eventually, if Giannis does sign that extension, if he looks over at who's sitting on the bench and is like, he's not the guy. Right. And at some point, he doesn't seem, everybody puts all the firings on LeBron, which I'm sure LeBron has had input. But at some point, if you're the 2-time MVP, you kind of have to be like, all right, something's got to change. But I'm with you. This was also in my loser category. Jrue is a great pickup, but they gave up a huge amount of draft picks. I think almost the same amount of draft picks as the Pels got for AD. For Jrue Holiday, who's not been an all-star forever, is well respected and an all-around player, but he's not. To me, they have 2 number 3 guys now on offense. You have Giannis number 1, and then I've never been a fan of Middleton. I've always thought he needed to be your 3rd best player, but now they brought in another guy that I would love to have as my 3rd best player in Holiday, and they mortgaged their future for it. So and the people that are like, oh, but if Giannis signs, but if Giannis signs, this was your big move. You gave up all your future assets for one guy who could walk, right? So even if Giannis does sign, how much wiggle room do they have now? They just gave up all their future assets for one player. So if they had got Bogdan, I probably would have I still wouldn't have liked the Jrue Holiday, all the stuff they had to give up for him, but I would have been like, all right, well, now it's more likely that Giannis is going to stay. And then if you kind of take all that into consideration, him staying plus, picking up a restricted free agent and the Jrue Holiday, and you kind of try to combine all those into losing the picks, then it'd be all right. But he hasn't signed it. You better hope he does, because if he's not, you're in purgatory.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. I hope he signs. I think he does sign. Yeah, if I had to wager, I would say he's gonna sign it. But
he's
then
a loyal type of guy.
Yeah, but then I think the clock starts running on Bud, and I'm just not you shouldn't have tampered.
The problem is what kind of contract does he sign? Does he sign one with all kinds of player options in the final 2 years and all these things that says, hey, if you don't improve, I got the ability to opt out and go. And I mean, there's not much they can do now. I mean, trades, they've given away pretty much anything that's worth trading.
Yep.
And they can't sign free agents. Any major free agent has already signed. Mm-hmm. Their guy is the number one free agent for next season.
Yep. But I think he signs. We'll see. He's got to sign, though. He's got to sign.
We'll see.
All right,
let me hook you up with my next loser.
All right, who's your next loser?
No surprise, because they've been a loser.
I already know who you're going to say.
Through
Go
mid-season,
ahead.
regular season, all these things. The Houston Rockets.
Oh, not who I thought you were going to pick.
You didn't think I was going there.
I mean, I agree, too. Let's hear why.
Okay, Houston Rockets. Their number one star, Mr. Rocket himself, James Harden, says, get me the heck out of here. Russell Westbrook, who they mortgaged the team for essentially to trade to, is one of the reasons why OKC is sitting on, a mountain of draft picks, where some of the things they've done the last couple of years is because they mortgaged a lot to get Russell Westbrook, and who also says, get me out of here. They mortgaged the whole team's future for this weird small ball experiment that they did. They brought in Robert Covington and wanted him to play center. All right. So, side note, one reason why Portland is one of my winners, but they got Covington to go to Portland. So they lost Covington. Mm-hmm. They don't have Capella. They signed Cousins, who hasn't been able to play, 6 games in a season. They
did like the Woods contract, though. That's a good one.
Yeah, they got Christian Wood, who's a major piece, and they're trying to figure out how to get big guys back on their team on the cheap, since they got rid of any person who could get a rebound for them last year. But they're still with 2 superstars who don't want to play for the team. I believe both of them will play, and they're going to be hoping it's going to be a distraction for their team all season, because they're going to get question after question on, are you talking to the front office? Are they talking about trading you? Are they going to try to keep you? Are you happy? And I also saw that Harden, one of the reasons why he wanted to leave was he didn't like Fertitta's comments when it came to political things, when it came to supporting Donald Trump and some of the stuff that he was supporting, and so he just doesn't have confidence in the owner, and so they lost their coach and the GM, who were one of the 2 people who said, let's do this experiment and get rid of let's get rid of all our big guys and get rid of all our team, and then those 2 at the end of that failed experiment just said, peace.
Yep.
I'm leaving, and Russ and James want to go too. It just seems like a 3-alarm fire going off in their apartment building, and they're all looking for the exits.
Right. I only didn't include them because they're both still on the team. So, I mean, they didn't make a move yet, but if you were going to say, who's got the worst climate in the locker room or as an organization right now, I think you're definitely on the right track. They've been catering to James this whole time, and now Morey, it's been well reported, Morey didn't want to get rid of CP3, D'Antoni didn't want to get rid of CP3. This was Harden and ownership were like, who do you want? Harden. And he was like, well, it didn't work with him, so I want Westbrook. So yeah, from a climate, they did not have a good offseason. It'll remain to be seen what kind of moves they do make, but yeah, that's the only reason I didn't include them. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be, I see them taking a step back for sure this season.
Right.
My last because I've already hit on Gallinari and Jrue. My last worst move of the season is, again, I'm not mad at the money. Get your money.
Get your money.
Jeremiah Grant. Bro, the Denver Nuggets were offering you the same contract to go back to a team with young stars who, they only won one game against the Lakers, but you guys are up and coming. You were a big part of that. I think he may have got worried that, Porter Jr. is untouchable to the Nuggets.
Right.
And his reason to go to the Pistons was he wanted a bigger offensive role. Yikes, dude. The Pistons are going to be so bad. The Pistons, just the Pistons could have been on the bad sheet. But this, saying that you want a bigger offensive role, you got your money, I'm happy for you getting paid. But man, I don't think Grant is that dude. I don't see him being a number one option or a number two option on even a playoff team. He was like the fifth option on the Nuggets, and it worked, and they were willing to pay him $20 million a year to stay. Yeah. So Grant, you're my worst move, man. Well, the Pistons suck, but I just don't like
the Pistons in general are just a team of worst moves. And I agree. Jeremy, it's similar how the Pistons got Reggie Jackson from OKC. Remember, he was there with KD and Russ. They were doing their thing down there, and all of a sudden he's like, I want a bigger role.
That's a great comparison.
I can be the man. And he went to Detroit, and what's Reggie Jackson doing now? Right?
He's not on a team right now. He's looking at a minimum somewhere.
Hey, he made his money. He made his money, but they've always questioned that move since they picked him up. And I think the same thing, Jeremy Grant, good, you can go get that money. It's not a long career. Some guys, the top tier guys can bounce around for championships. The rest of them are trying to get the biggest contract they could squeeze out of a team.
Generation money.
I get why you got to do that. And he's on a team where hopefully in his eyes, he'll shine to where his market value is even higher. That's what he's hoping. I don't think that's going to happen to anybody who plays in Detroit in the modern day, but it could happen. I mean, it helped Derrick Rose for a hot second, but I believe you're right about Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, I don't get it. But congrats on getting your money. And I will say though, you brought up a perfect example in Jackson. At least he wasn't vocal in Denver about, hey, I want more touches and stuff like that. So he was it seems like he was a good team player, but yikes, turning down the same money to go to Detroit.
The only thing I can think of is someone in his ear is like, if this works out for you, you'll be worth more than this contract come another time. Man. And Lord knows Detroit is a hot second away from full on rebuild. So I mean they're gonna be. I feel like Lake is probably going somewhere. I mean, full on rebound, just like everybody's gone.
Yeah, doing an OKC and stuff.
Yeah, with no draft picks, but with not OKC draft picks. But yes, I believe that the Detroit has to hit the reset button fully and quit playing around with some of these contracts they're doing. I quickly touched on it. I'll hit the Trailblazers as one of my winners. Portland. Okay. They signed Robert Covington. I mean, I believe that that's a big deal for them because they have Covington didn't play well for Houston, but that's because they did that small ball mess. But he has a good jump shot. He's a dependable player. And I think for Portland, he brings more offense to the team. They got Cantor, Derrick Jones Jr. I think they kind of overpaid for him, but if he fulfills his potential, I believe that he's got heart and he's coming there a hard player. I just believe that everything they did improved their team. Portland is always on the cusp, so they're not going to do major changes, and it's hard for them to get big free agents. They've been trying to get big. I mean, Dame is always tweeting all the big free agents to come there and play with him. Right. And they never can get the big free agents. So what Portland's doing is like, let's keep what we got and let's tweak and just turn up the volume just a little bit at what we can each year. And I believe everything they did with Cantor, and re-signing Hood and Carmelo for another year. And if Nurkic and Zach Collins can come back
And be
and be
healthy.
healthy,
Yeah.
then I believe their team is deeper and better than it was last year. And that's
Okay.
all they're trying to do is get better. Is it going to be a championship? But they fought hard in the bubble and really put some teams on their heels. So just adding some of those more pieces, I think, improves them.
Yeah, I'm not as high on them as you are. I think Covington is an okay player, but I mean, has he ever, the Lakers were double teaming Harden. They were daring anybody else to shoot. And
Right.
I don't remember him having a moment at all against the Lakers.
Well, he was playing
None.
center.
Well, I mean,
6'7".
well, they had Tucker playing center.
Tucker playing center.
Yeah,
and
so I mean, but offensively, I don't remember hearing his name. And they were double teaming Harden, so there were shots to be there. He's always been kind of like, okay, yeah, he could probably get some minutes for you in the postseason, but is he a guy that I think steps up and does something for them? Not really. I do think the Jones, he couldn't play in the finals against the Lakers either. Like, is he anything other than a dunker? I don't know. They paid a lot to find out.
Yeah.
I do think health is their biggest thing. Nurkic, Collins were down a lot last year. I like Nurkic. He's a good center. Collins, I don't think I've seen enough. I think, he's one of those guys that we saw like a glimpse, and then he's been injured ever since. So were their moves good? I guess. Yeah, but I'm a wait and see approach. Like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, they're going to be a number 2 seed. They're going to fight the Clippers and the Lakers for, to be the contenders. We'll see. I'm not super sold. Not super sold yet. I got to see it in action. I won't say it's a losing move, but I'm not as high as you are on it.
Well, that's a good segue to my final losers.
Okay.
Let's go back to LA and just cross the hall over to Clipperland.
Okay.
From the Lakers being the winners,
Mm-hmm.
and the Clippers are losers.
All right. You didn't like the Ibaka move, huh?
Well, I believe Ibaka is he's an upgrade from Harrell, right? But they lost Harrell for nothing, right? Ibaka, they gave him 2 years, but he has an option.
Right, so he's going to take
second
that.
Year.
He's probably going to take that.
He can, because it's 2 years for 19 mil, right? But he has a player option. That means next year, Kawhi, Paul George, and Ibaka all could leave the Clippers. Yeah. Right, so they are also mortgaging their future. Remember, they gave up a lot for Paul George. Thus, another reason why OKC has more draft picks than they know what to do with. All right, and everything they're doing. And it's always reportedly, especially how they were at the beginning of the season. We got defense with Patrick Beverly, and we got you got Lou Will off the bench, and you added Kawhi and Paul George, and these guys, and Montrezl Harrell is everything, and these guys are going to be. Is it the Lakers who are going to win, or is it the Clippers? That was the only question everybody had last season, and the Clippers grossly disappointed. And you see all the holes. One, Patrick Beverly is not a good point guard. He can play some defense.
I think he's on the decline for sure.
Well, of course, and he's on the decline, and they don't have anybody who can run that team on offense. Right. So not getting a point guard, they didn't need Ibaka as much as even though Harrell got ate up by Jokic, and they saw that they need somebody who can defend Jokic. So that's why Ibaka is a good pick for them, but they still don't have a floor general. Kawhi and Paul George are not out there to be dribbling the ball and trying to beat James Harden. They are different players. Paul George definitely is a guy that you want someone who can penetrate and dish to him, and he can make a couple moves, but he's not going to be a floor general. Kawhi doesn't want to be, even though he probably has the ability to. It's just not part of his game. So they need a better point guard, and they did not do that. And I believe that the moves they made this offseason, losing Doc Rivers and all these other things, I believe the moves they made does not give Kawhi Leonard the confidence that this team is up at the level. Just because their performance last year, everybody's talking about the Lakers are repeating. No one's bringing up the Clippers. Last year, that's all we could talk about is the Clippers going to be which the team better than LA? Right now, it's heads and tails. The Lakers are better than y'all. And I don't think they did anything to be the Lakers. Sure, you can stick Jokic because he's who put you out. They're the one that put you out in the playoffs.
Right.
But can you beat the Lakers?
I'm wondering if after all the rumblings coming out that Kawhi was getting preferential treatment, was basically Kawhi's team. He played when he wanted to.
Right.
I would be surprised if we see him sit out any back-to-backs this year. I agree that they didn't have a great offseason, but they still, Paul George and Kawhi, pandemic P, I think he's still they're really good players, and
of course.
I think the Clippers have the most pressure out of any team to perform this year, without a doubt. I still think they're a top 2 to 3 seed. I would not want to play them in the playoffs this year. Right. I don't get how they signed Morris for $60 million and his brother got picked up on the vet minimum. Back with and let's be honest, Keith had a better run than Marcus did, right? Without a doubt. That series turned. If you were to go back to the Clippers and Nuggets series, that series turned when Marcus Morris got in Paul Millsap's face and started telling him to go home, and that they were done. And after that, they were done. The Clippers were toast. So I don't understand that.
Well, one is playing still for money, and the other one's playing for a second ring.
That's true. I still think the Clippers are a really good team. I don't know if they did enough, and I agree with you. They need a point guard, because when Patrick Beverley gets the ball, he crosses half court, and he is immediately looking to give the ball up.
Right.
He'll get a steal, dribble across half court, and be looking like, okay, who can I shovel past this to? So,
and he's zero threat on the offensive side.
Yeah.
So that makes the other team's defense stronger when you don't care what Patrick Beverley does with the ball offensively. They're not thinking he's going to find somebody with some fancy pass. Yep. He's not trying to score on you. So on the other side, even though he's one of their better defensive players, which, I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter.
I still think he's on the decline there too.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is that unless the other team you're playing, the best player on the team is the point guard, which the top point guards in the league, sure, he's a pest, but he ain't stopping Dame Lillard from scoring.
No, I think they proved last year that team was all bark, no bite. Right? They were talking all kinds of trash, went into the playoffs and got smacked. So I'm with you. I'm not I think Ibaka was a really good pickup. I think the Kennard trade could work out for Shamet, but I could see why you got him in the losers, because the Lakers, I mean, even if you don't think they lost, right, which I'm not a fan of all their moves. I thought they way overpaid for Morris, but you look across the hall and you're like, okay, if the Lakers are an A+, where do you put the Clippers? So
the Clippers are in a similar position to teams like Houston, where it's championship or bust, right? If they haven't, the Houston Rockets have been making moves trying to add one more player to James Harden, because making the playoffs is not the goal nor the expectation of a team of that caliber. It is at least making the NBA Finals. And making the NBA Finals in the past couple of years meant you had to beat Golden State. Now it means you have to beat the Lakers. But every time those teams like that with those high expectations, like Portland's in my plus, because they're not expected to make the finals. The finals, if they make it, is an overachievement. Like they're high. Getting a 3 seed, 4 seed, not being in that battle of 7-8, 6-7-8 or whatever, and actually solidifying maybe a 4 or 5 spot is the tops that I look at for Portland. So to me, they're improving to make it to that. Clippers and in the modern day Clippers with Kawhi and teams like Houston, they have to be able to beat the best team in the West. And neither of those teams, that's why they're my losers, neither of those teams have improved enough to beat the Lakers. It used to be 1A, 1B at the beginning of last season for the Clippers and Lakers. Now, like you said, are the Clippers 2 or 3? You know what I mean? They did
Well,
lose
they're
and
up
get.
there. I still think they're a problem. I still
Yeah,
think
they're
they're a problem.
definitely a problem. I mean, it's not like Denver's gonna be able to mollywop them next year or this season coming up. It's still
But
gonna be a tough game for
oh
them
yeah,
to go series.
but they have the most pressure. There is no other team in the league
Yeah.
that has pressure on them the way the Clippers do this coming year. And to end it with that, we have training camp starting this week.
Oh
We
my
got,
goodness.
I can't believe we're even saying that. It's December
Ugh.
1st, training camp starting. By Christmas, we're going to have games.
Oh,
It's insane. The offseason has been crazy.
with
But,
no bubble, we got no bubble.
well,
So
yeah, well, let's
the
hope not.
NFL is getting rounded up right now. So hopefully the NBA, the teams stick to protocols. But I'm excited. This is happening way too fast. But I'm glad there's a season coming up. And yeah, we got 3 weeks?
Yes, sir. We're in the mix.
Until the season starts. Oh, that's crazy.
But,
That is crazy.
all right, guys, we're going to get out of here on that. Thanks for checking out this video, and stay tuned. We have our over-under for wins, losses for every NBA team coming up next. But hit the subscribe button, give us a like, leave a comment. Who did you like? What moves did you like? What moves did you not like? And what else you got, Brent? You got anything else?
Yeah, I got you a little quote. Where'd this come from? Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
What's it from?
You supposed to tell me.
Oh, I don't know. I'm terrible at this game. I'm terrible every time. But all right, we're gonna get out of here on that, guys. I am Dean, my man Brent. We are Mid Range Game. Take it easy.
Peace.